Now you're very welcome to the first racing room of 2026. We return with Christmas been and gone, but rest assured the three wise men, or indeed the three stooges, are back again to guide you through the ups and downs, ins and outs, trials and tribulations of both the racing and gambling industries throughout the year ahead. So needless to say, we have lots to get through. It's been a while between drinks, but we'll just run you through the contents now of what we're going to speak about, some of the highlights, I suppose. So we have the standoff between Betfred and Arc, which will materialise with blank screens in shops and online on New Year's Day. We'll deal with the big talking points from the Christmas racing. I know the way you're thinking. The Gold Cup winner massively drifting in the betting for the Saddles. Is that a good thing for racing? How important is it to have celebrity owners like Harry Redknapp having big race success in the King George? We'll also get AK to run through, give us his first-hand view of the betting in the ring at Leopardstown and his feel for how good the trade was. And we've lots more besides that, including your questions as well. But first, we'll catch up with the lads and we'll say hello after a bit of a break. Tony Calvin, we'll start with you first. Did you have a nice Christmas? Are you raring to go for 2026?
Yeah, I went to Cornwall for a few days. It took us 7.5 hours to get down there, so that was a bit stressed. But yeah, once you're there, it was very nice. I like that part of the world, yeah. So got back on New Year's Eve. So yeah, ready to go.
Harry, how are you? Good Christmas?
I'm very well, thanks, Ronan. Yes, very good Christmas, thank you. Well, as good as could be expected. We were in London this Christmas, lots of family and friends, and yes, and back. Today's a working day again, properly a Friday, the first proper working day back, which is going to go down very well with the people I'm about to email.
Very good. And AK, I noticed you had your out of office email on, but you're very much working over Christmas. I think you did every track you possibly could on every day, so you're pretty busy.
Yeah, still the out of office on just don't expect any kind of non-urgent reply from me until Monday. But yeah, no, I did obviously Christmas Day in the house that we had. It's my first year in our new house, so it was enjoyable, a bit more room, and we had 18 on Christmas Day in the house. So that was busy and lots going on. And then I did 6 out of 7 days on course after that. So 4 days at Leopardstown, took a day off. I think they call those days spending time with the family. And then went to Punchestown and then Furry House on New Year's Day as well yesterday. So back in love with the racetrack and really enjoyed it.
Very good. Okay. We'd usually do the racing review at this point, but at risk of hitting the 2 hour mark, we'll probably have to leave it. So I'm going to leave it to you, Tony, to explain how people can catch that on the Tips website, and you can just deal with maybe a few talking points from the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I thought if we did one performance, we'd have to do 30. So, like you said, it would have been a bit too long for this podcast. So what I'm doing, I'm just in the process of writing an article from the 20th to yesterday, just the performances of notes, and that will be online this afternoon before this podcast goes out. So you can read that there if you want. Yeah, it's obviously been a very, very busy time racing wise. We had some really bad news with the deaths of Sheikh Mohammed Obeid Al Maktoum, massive owner. It's a worry for the sport. These big guns, the likes of Khalid Abdullah, etc. in recent years. So hopefully one of his family will take up the reins there and continue his involvement in the sport. And in many ways, a lot more kind of like sadder news was the 20-year-old jockey Paul Kavanagh died in a car crash on Christmas Eve. So it's a perilous on and off the track there. So that's obviously very, very sorry news. On a brighter note, on the jockey front, Billy Loughnane broke a 21st century record by riding 222 winners in the calendar year, breaking Kieran Fallon's mark set in 2003. So that was a phenomenal achievement. And other jockey news, Will Biddick, 8-time point-to-point champion. He retired recently, so I know he's done a lot of work with Paul Nicholls in the past and going forward. So we'll do some stuff there. On some incredibly positive news over the Christmas period, there were massive crowds everywhere. Most notably yesterday at Cheltenham, that had 44,151 on New Year's Day, which smashed all previous records. And just, you're hearing they were still queuing up in cars to get in after the second race had been on. So I'm not sure what prompted that.
They couldn't watch it in Betfair, so presumably they decided they had to Betfred.
So yeah, I mean there were 6,000 under 18s there, and obviously they're included in the figures now. But even so, that is an absolutely phenomenal kind of like crowd. I was alerted to someone who actually helps collate these figures on course before that, and he said, and this was about 2 hours before racing, he said, "You ain't going to believe this. There's 38,000 there." And obviously they were still coming through the gate after the second and third races, so an extra 6,000 were added on. So yeah, and that just continued the theme throughout the Christmas period, really. Ascot on the 19th of the 20th, they had a record crowd of 31,284. It was a record crowd, the highest since 2017 at Kempton on Boxing Day. There was a crowd of over 17,000 there. The Grand National crowd on the 27th, that was 11% up on the previous year. So I'm not sure what's prompted these figures, but and Newbury had real big figures as well. So I'm not quite sure what's prompted these, but hopefully they will continue. You're always going to get a boost at this time of year, but they were, pretty phenomenal.
Champions full gallop, I think.
Yeah, well,
Maybe.
I think what was that? The BHA initiative, the going is good or something. Yeah, they'll claim that. They'll probably claim that. So they'll get another £4 million worth of funding next year. Like I said, there's no racing review section of as such this week, but we had a question in from Point Blank. Obviously, Gordon Elliott had a brilliant time of it over the Christmas period. And Point Blank asked, "What do you think of the underperformance of the Mullins stable? And do you think this is a turning point in Irish jump racing regarding the Elliott stable?" Now, Elliott, I think, is a bit too soon to be saying that, but there's a lot of people whispering about that. This could be Elliott's year for the trainer style, but we've been saying that for the last God knows how long. But too soon to write Mullins off. But Elliott definitely seems to have more strength and depth this year. Anyway, but you can read about that on the AKBet's website a bit later on. We're not dealing with the racing as such, but we picked out a few topics to discuss from the performances, which we'll come on to now, Ronan. So that's the racing review.
He's still a big price, I'd say, isn't he, Gordon Elliott, for that trainer's title? I'd imagine. I saw somewhere last year. I saw someone talking about it. It might have been Jane Mangman. She was on about he had 11 winners over Christmas moments, and he had 7 over Christmas last year. I think it was more the form coming into Christmas, which was probably a little bit of underperformance.
Yeah,
they didn't shoot the lights out, but they didn't massively underperform, I don't think. That Cheltenham crowd's absolutely staggering. Would be my take from those topics. So obviously the first year of Guy Lavender, is it? Is that the guy's name?
Yeah.
The guy, the £7.50 pints instead of £8 have roused the nation to go to Cheltenham. It's unbelievable. In fairness, I texted a bookmaker, who I asked him how it was. First of all, I asked him were the numbers true, and he said it's packed. And I then asked him how he got on, and he replied Beano. So I think there was quite a few happy on-course bookmakers, happy patrons, or whatever you want to call them, spectators, and I think it's just great. I think it's an unbelievable start for Mr. Lavender, and long may it continue.
Yeah, I suppose the only downside is you got, as predictably, if you got 6,000 more than you were forecast, people were just like having a bit of a moan about the queues and waiting 45 minutes for food and a cup of tea and stuff like that. But that's inevitable when you get a blockbusting crowd like that. But yeah, it's like I said, the figures from all tracks over Christmas were hugely positive.
Very much so. Very much so. Great to see. We'll kick on with the topics then, lads. And as mentioned, we'll start with this Betfred story. So Betfred haven't done a deal with the racing partnership to show ARC pictures online and in their shops. So they had blank screens yesterday for New Year's Day, and they only introduced markets for Newcastle, Subtle, and Windsor on the morning itself. I'll just read you out the kind of Racing Post story that came out yesterday, and I'll throw over to Tony to take it from there. So Betfred will not be showing live pictures from ARC race courses and betting shops on Thursday, but online punters also experienced a reduced service after a media rights deal between the two expired at midnight. So Windsor's New Year's Day jumps card will be the most notable fixture impacted for betting shop punters, while there will also be no pictures of Southern Newcastle. However, bets will be taken on the action. On Betfred's website and betting app, prices will be available, but punters have been warned of reduced service and the removal of concessions such as best odds guaranteed. The bookmaker also lists racecourses which are not operated by ARC but have their media rights agreements with the ARC operated the racing partnership. So the article goes on to read out all the race courses that would be affected by this going forward. You were all over this story from when it started, Tony, so I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, but it started. I got contacted by somebody who was actually giving me quite a few bits of information, so I knew it was pretty solid. I think he contacted me on December the 30th and saying there's a big story brewing and about Betfred not doing a deal with the racing partnership. He says there's a standoff. He said it doesn't look like it's going to happen. So I sat on that for a day, and it was never. I was hopefully going to keep it for the podcast, but obviously with the story going to break with no pictures in the shops and online on January the 1st, it was never going to hold. So I tweeted something out on New Year's Eve about that, and yeah, it just came to fruition. And as soon as I tweeted out that, I got a direct message from a guy who actually works for Betfred. He actually named the actual shop, but I obviously won't specify that. And he was just talking me through what was going to happen on New Year's Day. He actually sent me through an FAQs that Betfred head office has sent to all betting shop staff, and it was telling them what to say to customers, etc. And it was 2 pages long, so they were obviously expecting some grief from betting shop punters. I'll read out the actual direct message that he sent me, which was I was quite staggered by it, actually, to be honest with you. Anyway, so this is the employee. He said, "We have digital racing post, no papers. We have been told to dismantle, power off the screen so nothing is displayed. 3 meetings, I believe, are affected tomorrow." That was the 31st for the first. "No pictures or commentary will be broadcast." And this was the real kind of the staggering thing for me. And I imagine there was actually kind of like carnage in the shops there. He said, "Bets only accepted until the advertised off. So a bet placed for a 2:30 race that is from an affected track will be voided after 2:30 and 1 second, regardless of whether or not that race has started. All he is doing, as far as I can make out from tomorrow, is increasing odds on numbers bets and adding extra places pushes on non-affected meetings." Now, Anthony, you've worked in betting shops. I don't know if you have, Ronan, but if you're telling somebody
the store.
when in Salford, I think if you actually said to a guy who's back to winner and you're going to void it because it was after the advertised off time, and he thinks he's back to winner, and you're telling him so you're going to get your money back on that 33 to 1 winner, you get absolutely grief galore.
I think it's kind of handy they've got that. I have worked in betting shops years ago. I think it's handy they've got that line in the sand of the actual off time. That'll be due to not having the data and making sure they're covered legally there. I'd say that they're not taking bets at 2:32 for the 2:30 and whatever. They're just using the actual time as I suppose they better hope there's not any 5 furlong flat races going off early in the next while. But yeah, I always remember when I worked in a betting shop, on my week's training, I ended up winding up a customer because he backed like 3 or 4 losers in a row. And then he ran up to the counter to place a bet and roared it home in the shop. And when he came up to collect, I just jokingly said, "Oh, you were just 2 seconds late for that bet. It's been voided." And he absolutely lost his mind. But I was only messing around. But yeah, I think from a staff point of view, once you're aware of the rules and you've explained it to customers, it shouldn't be too difficult to implement this stuff. I wouldn't fancy being in Betfred's security team for the shops, having to troll through bet slips for 1,400 betting shops now, looking for this stuff. I'd say that's the biggest ball ache of the whole thing for Betfred. Probably not so much the customer facing stuff, but there will undoubtedly be a few teething issues early on. Just interesting, everyone's focusing on horse racing. I know we're predominantly a horse racing pod, but I just wondered out loud, I haven't seen any reference to greyhound racing here. And obviously Arc are quite prominent in the greyhound racing space as well. Unlike horse racing, there's probably a schedule that runs alongside the TRP schedule. So it's quite easy probably to turn one off in greyhounds and turn the other one on and you're happy out. Horse racing's a little bit different. You're probably going to have blank days and stuff like that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it develops. I think the squeeze on independence, of which Betfred are an independent, we were aware of this pre-budget, obviously, but yeah, I think the results of the budget, as I've made my points clear, have probably exacerbated some of this being untenable. Now, just interesting. The other thing, I don't know if it was Harry who mentioned it, someone mentioned too, it was a good observation, was if this remains as it is, and we don't know whether this is a negotiating tactic, which I assume it probably is, or they're happy just to turn it off for a good chunk of time, which would be unusual, but would be interesting to see what happens. But I think it was a good observation that Betfred sponsor the St. Ledger at Doncaster, but wouldn't be able to show the St. Ledger under this if this remains. But obviously that we're a good way away from that, I suppose. But it'd be interesting to see how it develops, and I think you're going to see more of this stuff as I've said. I think I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here now, but when it comes to SIS and TRP/ARC, one of those operators is relatively okay to deal with and friendly and stuff, and one of them is less so. And it would be just interesting to see how this pans out. There's probably quite a bit of, not, would you say it's bad blood? I'd say some of the people that consume this product don't particularly love dealing with some of the people that provide it, I suppose.
It's just on a related theme with the Betfred sponsoring the Ledger. Apparently, Betfred are also the official betting partner of Ascot, and obviously Ascot is one of those tracks where they're not showing. So I'd imagine there'd be pressure from people like Ascot to get this deal done. But do you know this Colin Finley guy? Because he actually put a very good tweet out. He's outlined the costs involved with independence, just the costs involved, and they're absolutely staggering, really. I mean, I think he said beforehand he's got a couple of shops in Ireland somewhere, and he just said per shop, just costs alone, it was 88 grand.
Colin has self-service betting shops. They're like they're not really staffed, I don't believe. They're like fully self-service terminal betting shops. With this, I think it's probably important to clarify here. There's independence and then there's independence. Betfred are a massive independent with 1,400 betting shops or whatever it is. We haven't heard from Boyle Sports in this, who are another independent bookmaker with quite a large retail betting estate. I believe the Boyle Sports betting estate must be 600 or 700 betting shops. I'd say 500, 600, 700. I'm not sure what the exact number is. And then there are independents of Colin's level of Sean Graham's level, 20 odd shops. Column's probably got 3 or 4 shops. There's that level, and then there's the two big players in the independent space, I'd say. Yeah, it'd just be interesting to see. I think how a firm like Betfred, with all those commercial deals and the scale of it, retail wise, after consuming totals betting shops, I think it went from about 700 to about 1,400 on the back of the. It might have been more than that. They might have gone from 1,000 to 2,000 at the time when they consumed Talksport. How they behave and how they can absorb some costs is probably different to how operator with 15 shops can do it. So it's, even though they are independent.
Yeah, just before we bring Harry, I mean, it might be just worth just reading out Colum's tweet on this. He actually said the usual process here is Arc will bend the knee. Fred's might get something like 15 grand per shop in a wholesale deal. Indos like me stuck with 22 grand. Economies of scale, yes, but clearly not sustainable for us. And there's a good chunk of Indos out there. So, do we think this is just a pure and simple bargaining tool, or do we think Fred is going to cut a hard deal here?
I think there'll be a deal done. When it's done, not sure. In the next few months, I'd imagine. Could be next week, could be in 2 months, not sure. But I think there'll be a deal done and there'll be some compromise. And I think some of the smaller independents will slowly remove Arc from their betting shop estates, I'd imagine, if the shops survive at all.
It's just a really strange market, isn't it? Where you've got not many suppliers of a product, and frankly, arguably got one supplier of a product if you want it from a certain racetrack, and you've got all these bookmakers who are making a lot of the money for the sport by taking the bets on it. The whole thing is just a strange setup that has been allowed to develop too many, impenetrable lines between the various interests, where really they should all be kind of working together to we keep saying it, increase the size of the pie rather than try to increase your share of the never diminishing pie.
It's I just hope my wish would be bookmakers acted as a collective here, and rather than just everyone doing their own separate deals.
I don't know if they can. I don't know where that sits legally. That would be the optimal solution, but I don't know if they can legally do that. I don't know how well that sits. I'm not smart enough for that now, but yeah, I just think it's just the pressures. It's kind of like the tax situation in the UK. Without sort of never say the word tax again, but like you need more money and you raise prices. Like the government needs more money and they put taxes up as the solution. Like this is kind of it. Like the pie is going to shrink here. I think the pie will shrink. I just don't think it's good, like I keep saying. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out, I suppose.
We will. Let's get stuck into some of the kind of Christmas racing, lads, and the kind of the main talking points. And ask how important for racing do you think Harry Redknapp owning the winner to King George is? So we had seen plenty about this going into Christmas. I remember seeing tweets of a quote from Harry Redknapp. I think he said something like, "The missus is having a load of people over Boxing Day, and I told her I can't be there because I'm going to Kempton." So it was well flagged up before that he was there, and obviously won the race, and the media attention has focused largely on him. Since this can only be a good thing, I guess, Harry, for racing, the celebrity kind of owner winning one of the biggest races on the calendar.
Yeah, and a popular celebrity owner rather than one who's become a celebrity because of an investigation by various authorities. So that's a nice move. Yeah, it can only be a good thing. Harry Redknapp is obviously a popular character, has been for some time. It's exactly the sort of thing the sport, should be, and I think is promoting. Is when you can get these kind of crossovers from other sports, because I think it brings it to the attention of new people, and to an extent it kind of breaks down this idea that horse racing is more complicated and takes too much time to learn, whereas a sport like football can you sort of work it out in 5 minutes when you start watching it. I think the difficulty there's always been with celebrity owners in particular is that they're doing this in their downtime. This is supposed to be their fun, and they perhaps don't particularly want to be spokesman for the sport. And I suspect that there is a fine line to be trod there between, mobbing these people and using them in a fair way to promote the sport. So I suppose it's a bit difficult, as I say, when really they're probably doing it, for fun as a hobby and to an extent perhaps not to be in the limelight. But Harry Redknapp seems very good about it all and happy to front up and be a bit of a spokesman. So certainly not a bad thing. And more like that I think would be very good.
Yeah, he's anybody who's had any dealings with him in the past, he's quite a colourful character, and obviously he comes with a certain amount of historical baggage. But I think what's interesting here is it does seem a genuine love for the sport, and he's getting on a bit now, and he hasn't got any other kind of like jobs or whatever to deal with. I mean, when Sir Alex Ferguson first came into the sport, he was still heavily involved in football, and Harry's just on the downside of that. He's I'm sure as I tweeted out, I'm sure the likes of Ed Chamberlain, obviously he used to be in football, and the likes of Dominic King at the Daily Mail, who've done a few stories with Harry. I'm sure they've got a few tales to tell about him.
Tony, do you not consider horrible pieces to camera for Bet Victor as a job these days?
Yeah.
He's a very wooden actor, isn't he?
Oh God, yeah. What was he? Was he burning something in one of those Bet Victor adverts? But yeah, it's as long as there's no
crumpets.
Oh, crumpets, that was it. Yeah, someone burned the crumpet.
Advertising works.
Yeah, I mean,
well, so far he's managed to advertise crumpets better than he has anything else.
As long as they're, some of these old football stories don't kind of like break out again. It's like I say, he seems to be. I don't like all this football shtick in racing, etc. And Ed is always referencing football in his crossovers, which I don't particularly like. I think racing should stand on its own 2 feet in that regard. But yeah, he's harmless enough, and he seems a very, very popular old guy. So perhaps I should park my cynicism for once.
Next Newcastle manager market crossover won't be happening anytime.
Yeah, next Chelsea manager.
Yeah. There was that he was involved in the next Portsmouth manager, wasn't he?
No, it was Newcastle. It was Newcastle.
Oh, was it Newcastle?
Oh, was it? Oh, sorry.
It was at Portsmouth.
I missed your reference.
I was.
Happens, Harry. Everyone misses my references.
No, it was just like there was Portsmouth, Southampton. I can't remember, but yeah, he
did both, didn't he? He managed both and managed to annoy everyone on the South Coast as a result.
Yeah. But yeah, he's. I think bookmakers have had some dealings with him in the past. Have probably got a few stories to tell as well. But
managed Bournemouth as well, obviously, as well.
Yeah.
I remember reading, and I use the word reading quite loosely, Barry Fry's autobiography, and he's talking about being the manager of Barnet, and he buys a player off Harry Redknapp. There's a few Harry Redknapp stories in there, and one of them, a player gets swapped for a lawnmower and a crate of champagne. And there was another one as well. I can't think what the other one was. So Harry Redknapp was trying to buy this player. They wanted this player from Barnet, and Barry Fry had the contracts in the top drawer of his office, and somebody broke into his office and ripped the contract up, and the man just left apparently. And I think he ended up at Bournemouth. Yeah, so Barry Fry's autobiography, and that's plug for you there. It's in very big, probably size 18 writing, but there's a few funny stories in there.
There you go. We'll go from, I guess, the big 3 mile chase over Kempton to Leopardstown, where we had obviously Aphrodite Fury doing the business for no me. But I guess the story from a betting perspective of the race was, again, I know the way you're thinking, friendless in the betting from the morning on. I think went off with a BSP of 9.2 eventually. AK, what you were obviously on the ground there, and again, it's not like this is the same kind of theme as what happened at Punchestown as well. He went off 25-1 there, and we discussed that at the time, saying it's not really becoming, I guess, of a Gold Cup horse that this is what's happening, and it's not the day, I suppose. So, what did you kind of make of this and the betting shape of the race in general?
Yeah, it was interesting. I'll probably talk about Leopardstown in a bit, but we tried to lay the front three in that market, and we were successful laying two of them. The one we couldn't lay at any price was I Know the Way You're Thinking. What do I think about this? I think this is where it pays to follow horse racing, I suppose. I give I Know the Way You're Thinking very little chance. The market obviously drifted. He obviously drifted massively. I don't know how he was 9-4 anti-post or whatever, but it's gone off whatever it was 13-2. We couldn't give it away 15-2 on course. I always think the place markets. Now I'll probably talk about the place markets when we talk about Betfred and exchanges later on as well. But if you thought it was friendless in the win market, you probably should have had a look at the place market. Like you could probably have taken threes, I'd say, at some stage in the place market. Like it was a very, very big drifter in the place market. To no money, obviously. But yeah, like what do you think of it? Like I noted Gavin Cromwell's interview after, it might have been with Gary O'Brien. I noted his comments to Nick Luck. And I just found it quite funny, to be honest with you, and interesting. Like, I just don't believe any of it. I suppose my natural inclination is just to be very, very skeptical anyway. But Gavin Cromwell and the Gavin Cromwell yard are very, very switched on from a gambling perspective and from a knowing what they've got perspective. And I thought it was quite interesting. Cromwell said, we expected a big run, couldn't believe the run, very disappointed. We expected a big run. And I just look at order flow a lot of the times, and if they expected a big run, we would have seen bets in the ring. You could have had whatever you liked on in the ring at Leopardstown over Christmas. Did they expect a big run? I don't think so. I certainly didn't expect a big run after not seeing any bets at all for the horse on the track in the 30 minutes before the race and prior to that, and online, etc., and everything. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't think you can 100% read into that, but I personally didn't expect a big run at all, and I wouldn't massively be put off from future targets, whether that be Gold Cup or other stuff in subsequent years. But yeah, I don't know. You've got to factor it in. I think, like, I was of the opinion that when I was pricing that race on Ghost, I could potentially be writing off 12% of the market here, because this horse just isn't going to be in the race at all. And I'm considering that when I'm laying any bet on any other horse as well. So I don't know.
You'd arguably be more enthused about his Gold Cup chance now. Was that a fair comment, that he's done what the market's already said to him, but he's following a similar theme to seasons gone by, and if that's the day that they want to prime him for? And
Yeah.
is that a too far-fetched thing to say, or what do you think?
Well, I think that's what sticks in the craw, isn't it? I mean, the horse, we all know Cheltenham is the be-all and end-all for some trainers, and the Gold Cup is the premier race. What will kind of like irk people, the market will go into reverse, wouldn't it? I mean, I think it tells you the story that he's still only, after two, on the face of it, woeful performances, he's still vying for favouritism. We're at the 6-1 market in that market. I think it's a bad look. Paddy Flood on another podcast was very good on this, and he thought it was a very very bad show. You got people are going to be backing that horse because they saw it won the Gold Cup in ridiculously impressive fashion, and
I think that's on them though as well.
Yeah, so do I. But they are the more unknowing public. I think that's what.
I think. Wait a minute. We're trying to grow the sport and get more people interested in it, and I think you can't assume everyone is shrewd enough to know what might have gone on here in those circumstances, or to be watching the market, or even to understand the drifting, something drifting in the market like that. is a very bad sign. I think that is something that is relatively specialist knowledge once you've been at the game for a while.
I think again, we come on to it. I mean, at the very least, the stewards should be asking for a full explanation.
Well, this is the thing that I think that was
Well,
odd about it is you've got a horse that drifts like that, and then you've got the trainer saying afterwards, "Yeah, I mean, we were expecting a big run, and I could just tell the moment it started it wasn't off." If the trainer didn't know that the horse was not in whatever state it needed to be in for the race, someone did. Someone appears to have known that. So is that not something that someone should be asking questions about? Is how does someone know this if the trainer doesn't?
yeah.
So yeah.
Don't know. Don't know about
Well, in what way?
that. Just in a probability way, percentage chance way. I think. Do you necessarily know, or like if we're saying that people laying horses and stuff like that, I just think it might be inferring. They might be just reading between lines, but not knowing as well. If you give me a decision on the off of that race, do I want to back or lay this horse? I'd be like lay. I was trying to lay, but in the betting ring, not on a betting exchange. Did I know? I didn't know.
Oh no, no.
I was
Listen,
just
at a certain
inferring
point, these
something.
things, at a certain point, these things take on a life of their own. But are you saying that there is nothing that seeded that? There is no information that seeded that drop in the price, that
So
drift?
The drift.
Yeah, there must have been that doesn't come out of nowhere. The original seed for it has to have come from somewhere,
I
surely.
just think we
It
put
doesn't
too
just,
much. I do
it's
think
not
we also
organic.
put too much. I think the lack of cash is going to
Hmm.
influence the drift. The cash for other horses is going to exacerbate the drift.
It might exacerbate it. It might
Also,
make it worse, but it's got to
also,
come from somewhere.
yeah, but original prices were probably too short as well. I don't know. I don't know. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I think it's just probably a bit of nuance to it as well. But the stewards askings as point. If we think these people that are betting that horse are going to get anything out of stewards asking and noting descriptions, they probably don't even know stewards ask questions or exist. I'd say. So I don't know. Stewards noting explanations is just a waste of time as well.
I agree with that. But the more the questions you ask, the more hopefully uncomfortable you make
Yeah.
people in these situations.
Well, I also think as well it's quite nuanced, the Irish betting ring and Irish trainers, right? There's some trainers that are unbelievably smart, I think, and I won't name them, but you can see a horse that'll go off 50 on an exchange and it'll be dead in a betting ring in Ireland and it'll be 25s, 33s, whatever. And at the off, just as they're about to jump, there'll be lads all over the place going 200 each way, 200 each way, 200 each way, 200 each way. And it fucking returns 50 or whatever. And that might have drifted all day as well. And then there'll be other horses that'll drift and there will not be a shilling for them. And you'll see a lot of cash for other horses in the race. There's two things. There wasn't a bean for that horse. I'd say nobody laid. I'd say that was a massive winner in everybody's book on the track, without exception. So there wasn't a beam for it. And the biggest discrepancy for me is saying that you expect a big run from a stable that is quite savvy from a gambling perspective. If that was the case, I would have expected to see some money, and we didn't see any of it. So I don't think a big run was expected. That's what I deduce from that.
Yeah. We'll keep it to the same kind of theme of Betfair liquidity. And Tony, you want to talk about this in general of the kind of Betfair liquidity over Christmas, which you described as pitiful, and asking now, is it becoming an increased integrity risk? So take it away from there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the liquidity has been falling off a cliff for a while, and obviously when you've got a lot of racing on a day and you've only got a certain amount of money in your accounts, you have to spread it, spread it quite thinly. But some of the amounts matched in the UK markets were astonishing. We had an hour to go before the Royal Americ on Boxing Day. ITV race at Wetherby. He's matched less than 30 grand. And obviously you have to half that to get the amount back. So that was staggering. And then And then someone said to me, well, just if you think that's bad, look at the Irish markets. And the Irish markets, honestly, I mean, some of them were struggling to do 10 grand with a half an hour to go. I mean, this probably all stems from affordability, and you can't get money into your accounts to actually you top up, and obviously people who've got money in the accounts don't want to take them out because you probably won't get it back in again. Um, I think it's a massive, I think it's a massive problem. Um, I just think if it's so easy to manipulate markets for so little money, it has to be an increased integrity concern. Now, this, I read about, the greyhounds as well, where there's literally nothing in the market. I think there was a tweet from Pieman 8 who's literally saying there's 3 minutes to the off at Romford. There was literally no money in the exchange markets. Then all the money comes in, and the horses and greyhounds are drifting from evens to 9 to 2, and vice versa. I'd be interested to know what the BHA betting investigators and the betting analysts at the BHA think about all of this, because they're looking at markets that pretty much don't exist until 10 minutes beforehand.
This is it. They don't exist. They barely exist at all, to be honest with you. It's probably time. It's probably time for two things. It's probably time to stop referencing exchange closing prices for quite a lot of meetings, because they're my favorite phrase, Potemkin villages. They just don't exist. Referencing the movement in them is just that if you were inclined to manipulate an exchange market, it'd be so easy. It's so easy. There's nothing there. I think it's a wake up to firms that are religious about the Betfred exchange, or exchanges in general, that are shaping prices off them. But the flip side of that is we used to have markets where pre-affordability, the good times from a liquidity point of view, you used to have bets in your field book as well. Now it's honestly, horse racing is becoming a show price product, because I see all these arguments. We want a minimum lay to lose on horse racing. There's no market. We're literally stripping everything from every angle, from a liquidity, from affordability, from a tax perspective. You're literally stripping players out of the market that used to form these markets. So then you've got the guys that do the work are getting pissed because they can't have bets, essentially. You've got bookmakers putting up prices that have got no confidence in the prices, of which I include us as well. Prices there for a colossal amount of racing that you've just got no opinion on, because there's so much of it and there's no market to it. I just can't see how it just doesn't evolve into a show price business if we can't continue down the way. There's no markets, and then you get people saying you should lay X amount to this, and they'd be the only bets in your book. They'd be the only bets in your book, and then you pay your turnover, your tax on top. Like, it's just not. It's not an option. It's not an option. You need liquidity in markets, be it sports books, be it exchanges, be it winning and losing customers. And we've just done in the UK everything to disincentivize people from getting involved from various angles. And like the liquidity, well, everyone always talks about Boxing Day for the Irish Stephen's Day. If anyone doesn't know, it's not Boxing Day, it's a Stephen's Day. There's that many meetings on that day, so you've got exchanges that have got, they're literally they used to be propped up by thousands and thousands of customers, small stakes customers, medium customers, large customers. Exchanges you're essentially betting against probably 3 or 4 syndicates now. That's all you're betting against. You're not betting against other punters anymore. Exchanges, you're playing against syndicates, you're playing against algorithms, you're playing against small liquidity. So anyone not technically savvy enough to drip bets into an exchange gives the game away and ruins a price and stuff like that. That's what you're playing against. Stephen's Day, Boxing Day has always been the case. If there's that much racing, that because you're betting against 3 or 4 syndicates, they're just spread too thin as well, because it's only them. So your liquidity just doesn't exist at all. But then that's filtered into, like, we were at Furious there the other day, just because I'm at the track, I'm stood at the back of the computer and I'm looking, like, you're looking at 4 figures matched on win markets. Like you say, 10, 15 minutes. The place market's the biggest shocker to me. place markets do not exist anymore. They just don't exist. The spread, I said the spread's wider than Jordan's legs on the place market over Christmas. Like it was literally like 2.8 to 4.2 and £2 either side. Just an absolute nothing. It doesn't exist. Absolutely doesn't exist. You were talking about the exchange liquidity there, Tony, in the UK. When I put races up on our away board, at least I see hundreds there. We were at Furry House yesterday looking at a race, which was literally 5 minutes to the off. And there was an 8-to-1 shot, and it was £2 and £4 either side at like whatever, 9.4. And everyone's like, well, it's bigger on the exchange. Well, you go and have your £2 on the exchange and pay your commission for it. And then if you want to bet, we have to lay bets on the back of that. Like, I don't know. It's referencing exchanges, they're just gone. They're absolutely finished. Unless there's some kind of unbelievable fundamental change from just the liquidity point of view, whether you call it affordability, whether you call it just binning people off, whatever it is, whether not being reliant on syndicates. It's just like syndicates just cannibalize the market. The top syndicates, they're unbelievably good. I'm very impressed by them. But for a functioning market, they just kill it. And that's what's happened.
Yeah. And you want to come in there at all, Harry or Tony, or we move it on?
No.
Okay. Let's go back on course then, back to Leopardstown AK, and maybe you can take us through the trade as it was at Leopardstown, in particular to, I think anyone reading your threads on Twitter from kind of betting reports each day, the 27 and 28 were big days for you on course. So take us through that, and I know Tony has a question as well to come in there after as well.
Yeah, just generally, obviously, rocking up on Stephen's Day. The crowd is a lot younger. I had my nephews asking me for tickets, which gives you a sign of they would never ask me for tickets for horse racing in Ireland on any day but Stephen's Day. So the average crowd, I'd say the age of the average crowd is, I don't know, between 20 and 24. I'd say, like, it's a lot younger people. Obviously the bet would be smaller, but the bet count's high enough. Decent days racing is fine, it's good. The 27th and 28th are two of the best days in Ireland. I think the 27th is just unbelievable, and then the 28th just stacked up as well, just because of I think it was Ballyburn and Galloping. I think they were on the 28th, weren't they? So like there was plenty of it tails off slightly, the crowd, but the bet was there because of just the quality of horse that was running. I think bookmakers probably just had a Beano. It's probably no news to anybody there looking at the results on the 27th and the 28th. I think the results were pretty good, especially in the bigger races. The 29th was very, very quiet. It's the same always. It tails off totally. Obviously, they had the Lossy Mouth Brighter Days Ahead race. Honestly, the turnover on that race was paltry. And if you would have had that race on any of the two previous days, we probably got lucky just the way the races fell. We probably would have had Lossy Mouth for 15, 20 grand on the 27th or the 28th. And just because she's run on the 29th, we've got her for a couple of grand. So we were probably lucky in that regard. I think it was Ruby Walsh and somebody else were talking about potentially moving the 29th before Christmas to potentially the 23rd, I think was mentioned.
I think might have a question on that, yeah.
I don't see a problem with that from a betting turnover and crowd perspective. Like it's probably worth a go because it's by far the quietest day. So I don't see an issue with giving it a go and getting people racing pre-Christmas potentially. I also think probably could you just take that Lossy Mouth race off that card and put it on a card where there's people at the racing, might be something. The one thing I think, just operationally, I don't know how people found it at Leopardstown. I don't know if you were there, Ronan. I just noticed smaller, like the chips I had were absolutely appalling. I put a picture up of that, fucking hell. Like, honestly, that was really, really poor. But I suppose I don't know what the chat can do about that, or whether it's their firm or whatever. But my God, Ended up having to go at my dad for coming back with it. To be honest with you, so I should have passed it back to them and said, drain those chips, please.
Was that your dad, or was that your younger brother?
Stop. He dines out on the story of he was like 30. I don't know how old he was, 34, 35, getting ID'd when we were in Florida on a family holiday. He still dines out on that, to be honest with you. So he's always looked fairly young. But yeah, just little things I noticed as well. Probably operationally small little things, like I went for a pee on the last day, and when you're looking ahead of you, in front of you, and you've got the signs, the adverts or whatever, and they just had the fixtures up for 2025 on the last day of 2025 in the toilets. And I'm like just missing little things operationally that should just stand out to me a small bit. But yeah, I thought it was really good. The 27th, 28th are just unbelievable, and then you probably need to do something with that 29th, because it's just not capturing people, I don't think, like the other 3 days.
Just the question I was going to come on to is, I was reading your betting summaries, and one thing that struck me was, obviously you had a brilliant day both of those days, and at the end of each day, you just said, right, going into the last race or the last two races, we're going to be careful. We're going to keep what we want on any given day, on the day.
Yeah.
But what struck me is there's always a tomorrow.
Yeah, 100%. It's probably a lot
maker and a punter.
Yeah.
But why are you cautious about keeping what you've won on that day, when knowing tomorrow you'd quite happily lay much bigger lumps in the opening race today? It just struck me as odd. A lot of bookmakers might have rolled up in that circumstances and thought, right, I've got another opportunity here, but you rein back. Why is that?
It's probably lost in translation, to be honest with you, what I was actually trying to communicate and what I have communicated there. I'm communicating my intention not to lose money, but we're not shutting up shop, basically. So we're trying to, I'm probably just making a passing comment that, geez, we've worked really hard and we've got the results and we've got this money and we want to keep it. But we still, if anything, I think there's a question later on about what races and stuff. There's a question later on I saw on one of the running orders. We, if anything, bet bumpers hardest out of any bookie in Ireland on the track, and it's just linked to shape of race, and a 5th to 3, etc. So we tend to have the best prices knocking about in bumpers in the ring. Just generally, I'd stand over that. So if anything, you're not really shutting up shop at all, because we just happen to like the race shape of bumpers, and all tend to be trying, for want of a better phrase, and it kind of suits us to attack bumpers as well. So
good. We'll move it on, gents. AK, I'll give you a bit of a rest because you're down for the next topic as well. I'll skip one forward and come back to it in a bit. So, Harry, I'll bring you in on the next one. This is it probably feels like a lifetime ago now. This news came out about Flutter with having to pay £2 million fine. I think it was December 17th or around that this came out. This was after an investigation found serious shortcomings in its social responsibility. Harry, so you catch this, and what did you make of it in general? Just on mute there, Harry.
Sorry about that. I did catch it, and it's more of the same, really. They are quite embarrassing breaches for an organisation of the size of Paddy Power Betfair, and but really, I just make the same point I always make, which is that it says at the top of the Commission press release, operators are expected to consider the issues outlined below and review their own practices to identify and implement improvements in respect to the management of customers' accounts. But what they always do is they give you the sensationalist stuff. They tell you sort of the most egregious breaches. And so there's not much to be learned, I don't think, by operators when you're just being told these things are completely unacceptable, because the starting point ought to be that most operators know that some of the breaches that have been listed here are not things that they would likely get away with. So I do, repeat my plea that the Gambling Commission starts explaining giving operators more of an understanding of where the lines are, not just examples of what has massively crossed the line, but something that actually allows operators and those of us advising them, where the lines are, because these are really not terribly useful, and yet operators, all of them say they're expected to learn from it. So I think it's a point I've made quite a few times before, so I won't labour it. But yeah, that's my main takeaway from this.
Sure. And let's do the Rob Davies story in The Guardian today as well. So this is UK ministers face increased pressure to restrict gambling ads. I'll just read you out a couple of paragraphs here. So ministers will come under mounting pressure to introduce curbs on gambling advertising this year as MPs and campaigners latch on to polling that indicates widespread public support for tougher restrictions. New polling shared with The Guardian indicates strong public backing for much less permissive approach to gambling ads, which have exploded in volume since deregulation by Tony Blair's Labour government in 2025. Surveys were conducted by More in Common and commissioned by the Campaign to End Gambling Advertising as a part of a report titled Ending a Losing Streak. They found that 70% of people support tougher curbs on advertising and sponsorship, with 27% saying that the gambling companies should not be allowed to promote themselves at all. Harry, come in on this.
Yeah, so this is arguably part of a sustained campaign by anti-gambling people to increasingly shrink the size of the gambling market by increased regulation and taxation on it. This has been coming for a while. I think there have been has been muttering for some time, particularly in the context of football, and certain clubs who have bookmakers almost tattooed on the manager's forehead when they come out for interviews, that kind of thing. And I think that
Have you given me any ideas?
And the only reason I know you won't do that is you don't own a tattoo parlor. Yeah. So this is the new frontier by the looks of things, is gambling advertising, and polling has been undertaken, which suggests that 70% of people are broadly supportive of a reduction in the ability of bookmakers and operators to advertise their products. And I think that this feeds in, funny enough, we're going to come on to an article by Dan Moore shortly, about the way the world is changing and how operators really need to grasp that, and that I don't say this is easy for a second, but they need to start trying to get a handle on the way that the national debate on gambling is going. It's too reactive. It waits until the last minute. It's too short term, and they'll lose this battle again as well if they're not careful.
Yeah. Rob Davies, typical of Rob Davies. New polling shared with The Guardian, unsurprisingly, the only one who print this stuff, I'd say. 27% say the gambling companies should not be allowed to promote themselves at all. Just reminds me of the George Carlin quote that think of how stupid the average person is, and then remember that 50% of them are stupider than that.
Okay, the other thing I was going to say is another way of losing this debate is just to call everyone stupid on the other side of it. It's very frustrating. You can make polling say whatever you want it to, so it massively depends on the way it's been carried out, who sponsored it, who wants the results. But that doesn't really matter. This is now an argument, and to an extent, the actual underlying facts, when you're in a debate like this, start to fade into the distance, particularly in gambling, where people, basically both be able to very forcefully make totally diametrical points.
Do we think Rob Davies will ever write a Guardian article that doesn't benefit the black market?
Well, I mean, I must say, I think that there was a bit of a giveaway in the part of the article that says the Guardian has decided not to show gambling advertising since whenever, 2018, 2023. It does suggest they may have come to it with something already of a view as to whether gambling advertising is a problem. So yeah, I think the answer is it's unlikely you're going to see a pro gambling advertising article in the Guardian.
The only ecosystem the Guardian cares about is begging for money at the end of every article.
Cheaper than the price of coffee. Cup of coffee, I think. prefer the cup of coffee, to be honest.
It reminds me of that line that Bruce Millington used on the morning line once about the cost of the paper. And I think back then it was only about £3. He said, "Oh, it's less than less than the price of a half a lager and stuff like that." He got absolutely murdered for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure opportunity costs, pointing out opportunity costs that are more attractive is the way to go about these things.
Yeah.
Richard, you mentioned a Dan Wow article there, Harry. Something I think we both read, but it feels like a while ago now. But to point anyone in the direction that it was a very well written article, just kind of summing up the situation for gambling companies. You can read it by going. I think if you just type in Dan Wow and Substack
War.
into
War.
I know you like the article, Ronan, but he wasn't that one.
Wow, yeah.
Oh wow. War, WAUGH.
Rebranded him.
Yeah, his favourite band is Bow Wow Wow. Yeah.
So if you want to read that article, it's very, very well framed. It kind of puts it into the spirit of gambling past, the spirit of gambling present, and the spirit of gambling yet to come. So it's a gambling Christmas carol he's wrote. And I was going to read out a piece, but we're a bit tight on time there. Before we get into questions and stuff, we'll just move over to the Greyhounds industry, I suppose, and just a sad story there, AK, with the closure of Swindon. So Swindon closed its doors after a 12-race card on December 27th, signalling the end of a 73-year stint of greyhound racing at the course. The first meeting taking place there all the way back in 1949. So yeah, just another sad story, unfortunately, for the greyhound industry.
Yeah, it's one after the other with the owners of that track. I think I despise them being called promoters. They should be called asset strippers, really, shouldn't they? Yeah, it's just the way it is. Unfortunately, the when people show you the true colours, you probably should believe them. And these guys have shown their colours on numerous occasions previously, and it's of no surprise, unfortunately.
Just going back to that Dan Moore article, Harry, why, I know you raved, well, you actually said it was an excellent article in a tweet or to that effect. Why do you think it was so good? And
because I think that it takes it outside of the gambling debate. I think the problem that we face as well is that we're very often just talking to each other on this subject. And we think that, the best example perhaps was the slightly bizarre fight between Duga and Beckett in the run up to the budget, as though that was going to make the blindest bit of difference to anything. And I think what this really highlights is that it's really important that gambling now realizes it's got to win a PR war with the public at large. The points he makes are that it's being outmaneuvered by a sort of public health led approach, which, as he gives a rather doomsday scenario, but I don't think it's completely unrealistic that it is going the way of the tobacco lobby, the tobacco industry, and will end up with people with the national curriculum telling people that gambling is problematic, and that is the fight that now needs to be won. Is that it needs to be fought on a macro level. He says that gambling needs to try and get closer to grasping the moral high ground and the centre ground, and not allowing the debate to be framed in terms of safety and in terms of the arguments put forward by the antis. Funny enough for me, this is probably going to sound slightly balmy. Bookmakers have agreed to do 20% of their advertising to be public, to be safe for gambling over here anyway. So I think that's 20% of their budget, or either 20% of their coverage has to be focused on safer gambling. I think they've agreed to do that. I don't think they're compelled to do it. I may be mistaken. I actually think that's one of the huge problems that gambling faces, is the amount of time it spends kicking itself in the public eye when you have adverts I remember the one that I just thought was utterly extraordinary was why I won't name the operator because it's not fair, but people will remember it.
For
Probably.
Miami, unless the advert was it?
A yoga no, it was a yoga studio with people kind of with their rolled up mats going, oh no, I love this game because I can set safety limits and it's fantastic. And you sort of go, what other product markets itself immediately by saying it's actually very dangerous and you have to be very careful about how much of it you use? And so I may be in a minority of one on that, but I think that that's not to say that it isn't important, safer gambling. I just think that operators have allowed that to become such a loud part of the whole concept of gambling in this country that it's slightly lost all proportionality.
This topic is the proverbial wizard's sleeve for me. Like, it's the majority of bloody gambling advertisement isn't even regulated anymore.
Yeah.
I keep saying my timeline is filled with irresponsible promoted gambling content from influencers and accounts on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, and follow my Telegram page. And this is just an absolute nonsense topic from do-gooders that just can't see that they're missing another issue, the big issue. We've got three more years, lads, of this government, I'd say, and we're looking at a 50% chance of reform having more seats. And the reform, you laughed at my Tories bet for more seats now at sevens, Harry. It's probably not as big a price now. Reform, Tories, some kind of coalition wouldn't shock me. And unfortunately,
I wouldn't assume that that's good news for gambling, though, myself.
I think it can't be worse, is what I'd say.
Yeah.
I'd say
I just think the problem is that you're thinking this is a government issue, and I think actually it's a societal issue, and the government is following.
I think it's
following the noise, the mood music, which is being framed by the people who don't like gambling.
Yeah, 100%. And it's the mood music's being framed by it's the same with the people that are like, it's just a small subset of people whose job it is to promote anti-gambling stuff in the regulated market. Essentially, you just don't bump into anyone in the street that's got that much of a
Well, I don't think many of the ones that we're dealing with and having to, listening from think that they are promoting or actively trying to promote the black market. I think where they fall down in terms of their the legitimacy of their position is that they seem largely to ignore the black market because it doesn't quite fit
They have to.
it doesn't quite fit the agenda because it makes things much more complicated in terms of regulation and taxation, of course. So they just sort of just say it's not there really, or that it's exaggerated.
Oh, yeah.
Indeed, we'll move it on, gents. So we just mentioned a quick couple of stories here before we get into questions. These are probably ones that we might have got to over Christmas, but just don't have time to get them in now. So Racing Post is to become the official partner of the Friday Night Live series for 2026. I think Invade's involved as well there. The BHA acting CEO Brant Dunphy says he wants the job permanently as he reflects on his first year in the helm. See what develops for him in the new year. Bet365.
So bad he might get it.
Yeah, he might well. Bet365 profits crashed by 44% to £349 million as majority shareholder Denise Coates takes £208 million in dividends and pay. And there was a story saying third series of Full Gallop was in the offing, and ITV have heard nothing about it. It seems, Tony, you had this, just to bring you in there quickly.
Yeah, there was a story. I spoke to someone at ITV. They said they hadn't heard of it. Just some guy flying a kite. Given that second series and all the money, the 1.5 million that Flutter threw at it through various things like the David Power Jockeys Cup, etc., to get jockey to open up a bit more and the trainers, etc. I have not heard hide nor hair of that series since the first episode in the second series was aired. It's just disappeared, isn't it? I think the idea of a third series after that would be kind of like a bit of an outsider. But yeah, ITV have heard nothing from what I can.
Just on all those stories, I'll just chip in very briefly, just for myself. Just Racing Post becomes official partner of the new Friday Night Live series. Like, who else could have been the partner there? Like how much jockeying for how competitive would that have been? Like, I think it's quite interesting that Betfred in our earlier story are turning off Racing Post betting shop displays because they show arc tracks and then Racing Post and then tying themselves in with arc here. That's quite interesting. Brand Dunshire, my God. Bet365's profits crashed 44%. The only difference in the last year, and it's not sporting results that I can see that could have exacerbated that, was withdrawing from a certain market. But as they are an independent company, we won't know if that is the case or not, I'd imagine. That would be my guess. And then Full Gallop 3. I didn't hear a pip about Full Gallop 2 after we spoke about it. How could there be a Full Gallop 3? I don't know.
Harry Redknapp could be the saviour of Full Gallop.
This is it, yeah.
Indeed. We'll get to questions, lads. So, first question from Racing Study. AK stated he thinks there should be a minimum lated bet of €1,000 for bookies on course in Ireland. Any reason why he thinks this couldn't be implemented online?
It's two different markets. I'd say it for UK and Ireland, to be honest with you, it should be a grand minimum, and it should be a grand minimum at the price and the terms that are on your board as well. It's too many bookmakers price up bad each way races and then restrict you to win only, and it's their own price that they're controlling themselves at the back, which I don't like. It's different to online where it's a feed price and the races are priced up a lot earlier than 30 minutes prior to the off, where most asymmetric information is stripped from the market, and the cost base is different as well. I just think it's bad where if I hear stories of knockbacks on course to less than £1,000 and often not each way or win, I don't particularly like it. They're the differences why it's different, the tax rate, etc. Blah blah blah. So I think it should be standard. I'd support it. UK and Ireland minimum. Might weed out some of the small ones that tarnish it a small bit as well.
Paul Norris asks, will Paul Nicholls' stable be the powerhouse it once was? I believe Michael Nicholls is sourcing horses for the future. Do you think this will work out? Tony, do you want to take that one?
It's obviously too early to tell, and we pretty much don't know the record of any bloodstock agent, and I wouldn't have a clue how good Megan Nicholls' eye is. We've discussed Paul Nicholls, numerous times about he's going for a dip. He's got a couple of promising horses. He had a Grade 1 winner at Newbury. No drama in the centre. Will be favourite for one of the Cheltenham races. As regards, if you work with family and it goes wrong, it could be, it's horrendous, isn't it? But yeah, I wouldn't know how good Megan Nicholls is or isn't about sourcing horses. Sourcing horses and sourcing good horses are two different things, aren't they? But I won't know. I wouldn't know.
Like the records are protected like poker players, aren't they? Bloodstock agents. You see the tournament cashes, but you don't see the tournament losses.
Oh God, the amount of spoofers in that. I mean, it must be frightening.
Mick asks, Anthony, do you take any regard to the paddock? More and more prevalent over here.
No.
God, there's only one bigger spoofer than bloodstock agents, and that's paddock people. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't know what I'm looking at, to be honest with you. And I think even the people who say they know what they're looking at, similar to Tony, I'm not convinced.
It really kind of like, it bugs me about whether horses hasn't run for about 360 days. And then you get people on TV saying, oh yeah, it's a lot tighter. He's grown a lot since I last saw him. They've probably seen about 10,000 horses in that period. And, I've got 2 grandkids and I couldn't tell you how much they've grown in the last year. and I've got 10,000 of them, haven't I? It's honestly, I just think it's the biggest load of gash going.
I agree. I honestly think if you swapped the numbers around on all the horses and then brought them into the paddock, I honestly think they'd start talking about them.
Well, we know there are a few trainers that would get thrown by that.
Yeah. If trainers can't even decipher it, it's like I always said it about betting. I obviously worked in the betting shop and stuff, and betting shop punters tend to rely on everything provided by the bookmaker, the form, the TV pictures in some shops, the pricing. And I honestly thought that you could leave all the form there and turn the market upside down and put 100 to 1 shots in at 5 to 4 and 5 to 4 shots in at 100, and people would still bet 5 to 4 and 5 to 2 shots that should be 100. They just.
Have you ever seen? It's like, have you ever seen Anchorman when it turns out he just reads anything they put on the autocue?
Yeah. Do you remember that program years ago about? Was it about a day at the races or something? I can't remember what it was, and some guy was at the paddock and he was chucking it down, and he ended up betting a horse and got won. And they said, "Why did you bet?" And because he said it had the biggest feet, and it was raining. And it won.
Well, he was looking for a duck.
It won, and everyone was like, "Yeah, that's my system. When it's raining, I just bet one that's got the biggest feet." I was like,
"Well, that's another thing as well. When it's raining, the paddock judges say they can't analyse them properly. They can only do it when the sun's out, so the horses all look all shiny and well. I'm sure there are some people out there who are very good at it and make money out of it, but I haven't heard one on TV or radio, etc."
Ernest Hemingway claimed to be able to do it in Paris. He said that he used to go. He claimed for a period to have been a professional gambler in Paris in like the 20s or 30s, and he claimed to be able to go to the races. And because he was such an alpha male, he could sort of be near the horses and he'd understand from the pack which of them was the most alpha and therefore which was most likely to win. This was serious. So there you go.
It's very.
No wonder he had to start writing those books.
It's very Derek Cora, isn't it? It's spoofers everywhere.
Good. Thanks for your question, Mick. So we'll go on to Cottle O'Shea. We kind of have discussed this already. So he was pointing out that Ruby's saying that they should change, or Ruby saying that he would change Leopardstown 29 to bring it back to the 23rd. And AK's Leopard Review suggests change is needed. Got me wondering, outside of the Cheltenham Festival and less racing, he has in inverted commas, if the team could make one change to a specific fixture / race day, what would it be? Harry, I have you down first here. I don't know if you had a chance to think about this. No.
Well, he's ruled out both of my two ideas, which is reduce the fixtures and he'll probably reduce the size of Cheltenham. So no, listen, I don't spend enough time thinking about fixtures to have a particularly strong view on that. It's probably more one for Tony, that.
Close Kempton and take the money. All day long.
And I'm going to add, get rid of the Costa coffee in the stand at Newbury because it's just really depressing and makes it feel like a motorway service station.
How much was it then?
I don't know. Didn't go.
Oh,
didn't. No, just the sight of it throws me into depression. The Costa coffee
I was reading about Costa coffee the other day. They're struggling, I think.
Yeah.
I think some American crowd bought them for however many billion, 4-point-something billion or something, and they're trying to ship them on because it's a basket case. And they can't find a buyer.
Yeah, well, I suppose they depend heavily on people going into petrol stations at 3 o'clock in the morning, and if that market starts to fall away, they're in trouble.
Yeah, no one's got jobs, so they're in bed.
Yeah.
There you go. Sorry about that, Call. We should have probably done a bit of research into that. A bit of mitigation for the 29th is, I suppose it fell on a Monday. With Leopardstown on the 29th, I suppose it fell on a Monday this year. Perhaps people were back to work at that point.
It's always not great though, Ron. It's I was looking at turnover figures. Just from a turnover perspective, it's always way behind the other 3 days.
Just a case of a fourth day is a lot of racing at Christmas and a lot of, I guess, maybe
29th to the 23rd. Give it a go. Ruby knows what he's talking about.
Okay, one more question from Stable Eye. Tweet from AK saying he hadn't looked at tomorrow's card. Does AK have odds compilers? Does AK take firm, as in AK the company, views on course during the day? Example being he gives a bad 5 off favourite Sorry. I think he gets a bad vibe off favourite and decides to lay it across all boards, or is he reacting to a live market, or has he preconceived an idea of how he wants to play the day from a betting perspective? Sorry, I could have read that a bit better, AKB. You get the gist of.
I do, yeah. No, I hadn't looked at. I only look on the day, to be honest with you. Do we have odds compilers? Not as such, to be honest with you, but we probably more risk heavy than actual pricing heavy. It'd be the biggest waste of time ever, us employing specific odds compilers for horse racing, because there's just not the turnover there for it. I suppose we're going more towards liquid markets anyway, so it wouldn't make sense from our point of view as a small firm. What we do is just bet the bigger races hard, as people are probably aware. What shapes my opinion at the racetrack more than anything is I look out for races where I anticipate movement, and then look at those races. And what I can say by that is, if you've got a big race, it's slightly different as well. If you've got some kind of grade one where, I think there was one over Christmas, was it the final demand race where William Mullins had the 3 runners and then there was 100-1 poke, and I think you've seen it. It's probably not a good example, but it shows the example. It was the similar with like Stateman running at Punchestown and stuff like that. You can have 4 Mullins horses and a De Brom head horse at 100-1. And my opinion is that somebody absolutely knows more than me about fitness, tactics, everything. So I'm just real cautious in those races. And I look a lot at race shape. So the mathematics of a race shape, and that determines how hard I bet. If you're looking at a maiden hurdle in Ireland and there's 24 runners, I can probably guarantee that somebody else in the betting ring will be a slightly bigger price on the favourite and the second favourite than me. And I'll probably be a bigger price on the other 25 runners. And that's just dictated by race shape and what we consider expected margin in individual selections. So we probably do it slightly different to other people. We have the office, obviously, where we see bets that might be interesting. And then that's fed back to the on-course team just to be careful of this. We've seen this, or blah, blah, blah. We haven't seen anything for this. A good race last year was at Christmas. Was it Stateman ran against Brighter Days Ahead last year at Christmas? Around 11 a.m. that morning, we had new accounts popping up trying to get thousands and thousands on Brighter Days Ahead in that race that she won. And obviously you can, inverted commas, you can get funny races with how soft leads are given and stuff like that. And that was a big race for us on course as a care, just because of the attempted bets we'd seen online for. I think the first bet we laid Brighter Days Ahead against Stateman last year was 11-4. We laid 5-2, 9-4 online, and it was all new accounts popping up with no. And then if you looked at the shape of the race, you've got a Mullins 5, you've got Brighter Days Ahead. Then I think you had Mullins, someone else on Mullins, and it just with the shape of the race and the bets we were seeing, that probably dictated how we played that race on course. That's an example where it worked. There'll be examples where we get it wrong as well, obviously. But yeah, we try and factor that stuff in.
Good. That'll do it for our first podcast back in 2026, gents. We'll be back. I'm sorry, I should have checked this, but I trust it's Monday week. We'll be back again. We're not doing a podcast on Monday. That's correct, Tony, is it?
There's not much racing going on over the weekend, and I think there's inspections in quite a few places. So yeah, can't see much happening in the next 3 days. But
the question is, Harry and Tony, are you coming to Dublin Racing Festival?
It depends if you are.
I'll be working. Unlike you,
it sounds great fun.
Unlike you, Harry, as usual.
I was thinking about this. It depends where you put us up. But we'll give you a list of hotels. And is it Ronan probably? And you, AK?
That's where he's putting us up with Ronan, probably.
Ronan's house. Are they? I seem to remember that. Are they Cheltenham like at that time of year, trying to get hotels near Dublin?
Usually clashes with the Six Nations.
Yeah.
So I think last year would have been Ireland v England in Dublin on the first day, so you would have struggled, I'd say. This year's better, I think. I think Ireland will be, even if the Six Nations is on, I don't even know if it starts because the first day is the 31st of Jan, isn't it? So I don't even know. But if Ireland aren't at home in the Six Nations that weekend, you'll be fine.
This is top podcasting content. Man guesses at sports events and when they might be taking place.
While another man frantically looks for when the Six Nations begin.
Yeah.
The Six Nations actually begin the weekend after. So you
No
can
excuses.
completely
go. Safe.
Come and meet your Irish fans.
Oh dear. Judging by the YouTube comments, I think we have to be very careful.
Right, very good. So we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when it comes to it, I suppose. As I said, as you mentioned, Tony, the racing isn't amazing this week, so we'll keep it real here and not be trying to upsell that. There's a Grade 1 at Naas on Sunday that you can check out. But Sandown isn't amazing on Saturday, but it'll be good betting races, I suppose. But if you are looking for bets on other sports this week, do check out the AK Bet Big Prices tab, Premier League, and the likes. All that's left to say then is thank you for listening. Thanks to the lads for their contributions. Thanks for your questions. And then we'll talk to you again on Monday week. Cheers.